I will reaffirm my commitment over and over and over again, as many times as it takes. Nothing is more important to me than my transformation. I agree to graciously accept success, love, health, prosperity, and overall well-being for the greater good of all concerned.
Mic drop. This is Your Kick-Ass Life podcast, episode number 376 with guest Sam Bennett.
This is the Your Kick-Ass Life podcast with Andrea Owen, a no BS guide to self-help and badassery. Because ladies, let's face it, life's too short for it to not kick ass. And here's your host, the girl who serves it up straight with a side of crazy, Andrea Owen.
Hey there, ass kickers. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. I have one of my favorite people back on the show today, so we're going to get to that in just a minute. I am thinking of all of the people out there who really struggled over the last couple of weeks with the winter storms that we're getting here in the U.S. I know Texas had it really rough, parts of the Northeast, and in the South where I am, we get ice storms out here, which do a lot more damage than the little bit of snow that we get. And we were without power for 2.5 days, which is the longest we've ever gone with no power. And because I live out in the sticks, I mean, not really, but it feels like it is sometimes, we are on a well system and we need electricity to power the pump that brings the water into our house. So we also had no running water. So it was an adventure. It was very Little House on the Prairie. We played lots of board games. My husband, myself, my two kids. We luckily had a fireplace that is run by gas. So we just all huddled around the fireplace in the living room. The dog was very happy that we were there and played lots of board games and lit candles and just made the best of it. But I know it's just been so widespread, and I'm thinking of all of you during this already difficult time. I also wanted to let you know that some of you may have already seen the email that went out. And if you are someone who works for a company or you own a company where you bring in speakers or trainers, I might be the woman for you. The thing that I speak the most on and train on is what I like to call unshakable confidence. So I have a confidence formula that I can bring to your company. It's all about speaking up. It's about maximizing confidence. It's about mastering resilience, which we all could use. So if that might be something that is a fit for you, you can either DM me on Instagram, I'm back over there, and or send us an email, support@yourkickasslife.com. Yes, things are still largely virtual at this point, which I have been running programs virtually for years, but hopefully we can book some things towards the end of the year where I can be in person with you and or your company, speak up on stage, or train your people. If you want to see a little bit more about my keynotes and what exactly it is that I speak on and train on, head over to yourkickasslife.com/speaking. All right, Samantha Bennett is back on the show. I am so excited to introduce her to you, to reintroduce her to you, because some of you might remember the show that she was on several months ago, and that link, of course, is in the show notes. But let me tell you a little bit about her. Samantha Bennett is a writer, speaker, actor, and productivity specialist, as well as the author of the best-selling books Get It Done and Start Right Where You Are. Sam is the creator of the Organized Artist Company, where she helps creative individuals get unstuck and move forward with their goals. She is such a joy and gives the best advice when I need to hear it. So without further ado, here is Sam. Samantha Bennett, my most conceited favorite friend, is back on the show.
Andrea Owen, I am conceited because I'm friends with you.
I remember our last episode that we did. That was your first time on the show. And I was thinking about you this morning in that last episode. And I thought to myself, I hope we just didn't spend the whole time giggling, because that's so annoying when you're listening to a podcast and the host and her guest are just giggling. And I don't know. I always feel like I'm not in on this inside joke. So I'm going to try to keep my giggles to a minimum.
Excellent. I will also put on my serious talking voice.
I can't promise anything because being around you is always such a delight. But we have some important topics to talk about.
Indeed.
I want to talk to you about, because you are an amazing artist, you are a writer, you are a poet, an actress. You just are the talent just never ends with Sammy Bennett. And I want to talk about some of the pieces of writing that you've done, because I love so many of them, but I've condensed the list down to a few. And today's episode is going to be kind of just a mashup, if you will, maybe a greatest hits, according to Andrea, and just important personal development topics. So are you ready?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay. One of the posts that you wrote that I love is titled "Disappointment and Remembering That Nothing Bad is Happening." And I asked you before the show, did you write this pre-COVID with that title? I mean,
I did, but and I want to be clear that when I say nothing bad is happening, I don't mean
love and light.
Yeah, love and light, that everything's happening the way you want it to happen, or that even, that the tragic things aren't happening, because they are all the time.
Yeah.
The important thing with any kind of disappointment, or any time things aren't going your way, of course we're going to have the ego flare up. Of course we're going to have this, why is this happening to me? But to take a slightly broader view. And so for me, this phrase, nothing bad is happening, sometimes it's just so shocking. It sort of wakes me up a little bit. Like, really?
Yeah. When you use it sort of like as a mantra or affirmation.
Yeah. It sort of wakes me up like, wow, could that really be true? And it reminds me that I do, in fact, have a spiritual belief that says we live in a benevolent universe, right? Mm-hmm. That love is, in fact, all there is. So that's grounding for me. Like, okay, right? And then I think, okay, so if nothing bad is happening, what is happening? Is something heartbreaking happening? Is something terrifying happening? Is something odd happening? Is something that's just not going the way I thought it should go happening? Get a little more specific in my language, like what actually is happening? And then how am I being called forward to grow? How am I being called forward to be a better person, a braver person, a better boss, a better communicator, a better woman, a better citizen, a more tender, fragile person? Am I being asked to in some ways be weaker? Like, where is the invitation here? To be more vulnerable? So that's what I mean when I say nothing bad is happening. It doesn't mean that everything's going your way, because it's clearly not.
Or that you should pretend that hard things, try to turn them into a positive.
Right. No, that spiritual bypassing shit makes me crazy. I hate it when people go like, everything happens for a reason. I'm like, no.
Actually, it doesn't. I changed my mind on that one a few years ago.
Yeah, no, what I can tell you is that everything happens. And I can tell you we get to decide what the reason is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If there is one. Sometimes it's just a shitty situation.
Sometimes shit just happens.
Yeah. One of the parts that I like about this piece of writing is that you talk about disappointment, specifically about disappointing ourselves when we let ourselves down. And I see that happen a lot with my listeners. Maybe not a lot, but it happens, where especially the type of people who self-sabotage, the people who their pattern is kind of fits and spurts with their work. They quote unquote fall off the wagon a decent amount, which I'm kind of like, that's what we're all doing. And the people who are telling you that they're consistent all the time, I don't trust them. I don't trust them. So, talk to us about like self-disappointment. Yes, please.
Yeah. So first of all, I also, I work mostly with highly creative people, right? Who, have a lot of talents and skills, are good at a lot of things. I have a bazillion ideas all the time, and are also generally very, very hard on themselves, just like your audience, very, very hard on themselves. And this idea that life is just this, ladder that we climb, a mountain that we climb, and we're always getting better and everything's are always getting, we're always rising to some new level. Again, not true. It's a lot more like a gyre. It's a lot more like circles. And to learn to have self-compassion, I think, is maybe the most important key in reparenting yourself. Our job as grown-ups is to reparent ourselves. Some of us had, not exactly members of the Happy Childhood Club. Our parents did the best they could, and sometimes their best was really shitty. Sometimes my best is really shitty. Everybody's doing the best they can, and sometimes your best is really shitty. But to give yourself a little grace around that, remember that disappointment is just taking score too soon. And greet your mistakes and your failures with some level of grace. So many of us got yelled at or punished or teased or, or just imagined horrible things. Ignored that horrible things would happen if we failed at anything ever. And that's just not really how the world is. You're allowed to try and fail and try again and keep going. And I guarantee you, this kind of, we might have even talked about this last time, because it kind of bugs me when people are like, oh, well, it must have been easy for Andrea to write a book. Oh, it must have been easy for Sam to write a book. Oh, it must have been easy for them to grow businesses. It's like, no, it hasn't been easy at all.
In some ways, I want to point out, like, yes, I have access to resources, and
yes,
as being a white middle class straight woman, yes, and it wasn't easy,
right? And it's this, whatever it is you think you're seeing when you look at people that you admire, I guarantee you, backstage it's a mess.
Yes.
And they're also consumed with self-doubt, and they also aren't really sure what they're doing. And they're also pretty sure that the imposter police are going to come around and go, who do you think you are?
Yes. And you've handled some of my tear-filled messages of self-doubt and, getting some rough feedback on my writing from important people that matter.
Yeah.
And it's, behind the scenes.
Well, and that's really where the strength building comes, right? There's a great quote by Leland Vol Vander Wal. Leland Vol Vander Wal was one of those personal development guys from the 1920s. And he said, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but it's something like, the amount of success that a person can experience is in direct proportion to the amount of truth that they can stand to hear about themselves without running away.
Oof.
And it's true.
I hate that that's true.
I know, but it's true. When your sweetheart says, darling, we have to talk. This relationship isn't going right. Or, your boss says, hey, what's up? Or, somebody says, look, this needs to be revised. If the more you can, again, reduce your reactivity, nothing bad is happening. Consciousness reduces reactivity. So, okay. Awareness, I'm being criticized. I feel like the world is ending because I want to please everybody all the time. But I'm just going to stand here and sort of take it. And then you grow past it. You're like, okay, well, how can we make this better? You're right. I haven't been listening as much as I should. I haven't been paying as much attention to you. I have been abrupt. This could be better, and then that's where we really get to grow. That's what really separates the women from the girls, if you're asking me.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. Fast forward to the end of 2024 and think about your goals. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Now it's so easy to speak simple conversation phrases with the guy that takes care of my lawn without having to consult language apps. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/noise. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/noise, spelled BABBEL.com/noise. Rules and restrictions may apply. Yeah, and I just want to sort of acknowledge what it feels like, because this is my experience. When I get feedback that is painful to hear, whether it's from my agent or my editor or my best friend, I get tunnel vision, and that, my friends, is shame.
Mm-hmm.
So we feel so like there's a spotlight on us, and we're out there in the arena or the circus, and and everybody's laughing, including all the elephants. I hate the circus metaphor. Like, by the way, I don't like circuses, but it feels so lonely, and like we're the only ones, and you can feel a combination of humiliation and shame and embarrassment and anger. And I just want to acknowledge that that's how it works. That is the typical experience from what I hear from other people and my own experience. And then it's okay. Like you said, like nothing bad is happening, but in those moments, we can feel like everything bad is happening.
I think it's interesting too, just to go back to where we started. We were talking about disappointing ourselves. And one of the things that raced through my head when I was thinking about how to answer is, one of the ways in which we disappoint ourselves is we have this perfect version in our head, right? We have the perfect version of the dinner party, the perfect version of us, the perfect version of whatever. And we forget that the rest of the world can't see that. So we're always like, oh, this isn't very good. Oh, this isn't as good as it should be. And then we're really surprised when other people are like, wow, that's great. And you're like, it's not as good as that perfect version of my head though. Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny that we're willing to give ourselves a really hard time about that. But then in real life, when somebody actually says, hey, this isn't as good as it could be, we're like, what? How could you?
Yes. Yeah. How could you point that out? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. I want to actually circle back to something that you had said that I would love for you to say a little bit more about, and maybe give some examples of how people can do this for themselves. And it's the reparenting
mm-hmm.
yourself. I mean, we could probably dedicate a whole show to that, but what are some things that you have found are helpful in that exercise?
A lot of times where it needs to start with people is just around basic needs. Are you fed?
Mm-hmm.
Are you rested? Are you cuddled? Are you meditated? Are you walked? Are you creatively fulfilled? Just that, this is what good parents do, right? Sometimes good parents have to be very firm with you and say, sweetheart, it is time for bed.
Mm-hmm.
Or honey, you are going to sit in that chair until this chapter is done. End of story, right? Other times, really good parents are endlessly forgiving and say, sweetheart, no, let's go for a walk. Let's get an ice cream. Let's do something fun. Let's get you out of here. Again, not all of us had that modeled for us as kids, but we can do it for ourselves. And this idea of treating yourself like you're a very bright 9-year-old, which I cringe to tell you how much my inner 9-year-old runs the show.
Mm-hmm.
My inner 9-year-old is in charge of most things. And all of ours are that, that to really develop that inner voice that is 100% on our side, will never abandon us, always loves us, always looks at us with a kind eyes and loving eyes, and just wants what's best for us. And you can do that for yourself.
I think so many times we forget about the basics. What is that acronym, like STOP or something, or HALT?
Hungry, angry,
HALT.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And there's actually, I put a fourth T or a second T on it because I heard Tony Robbins interviewed one time, and and they asked, I think it was Tim Ferriss, and he said, "Do you have any advice for getting over disappointment?" And Tony Robbins said, "Drink more water."
Wow.
That's such good advice.
Did he mishear the question?
I don't know, but that is such good advice. So now I think it's hungry, angry, lonely, tired, thirsty. If you are any of those things, then deal with your animal needs first, because it's amazing how much better things look after you've had a sandwich.
It reminds me, and maybe this is kind of like one level past that, and how people, I might talk to somebody who's feeling unfulfilled, and, I'll be asking questions about that might point to depression. And many times it's not that, but what's happening is that they're not doing anything in their life to honor their values. Like their basic personal values, and they might not even know what they are. And I ask myself that too. Like if I'm feeling unwell in whatever way, mentally, emotionally, then, have I done anything that really honors who I am to my core as a person?
I have a way of doing my to-do list that, first of all, I call it a could-do list, because to-do is too much pressure.
Wait, right. I didn't know that about
it's
you.
True.
You call your to-do list a could-do list? I love that so much. It's like possibly.
Exactly. Like I could do laundry. I could walk around in dirty clothes. I have choices. I'm an adult.
That might change someone's life right there.
Right? But it also lets me put down things that I would never in a zillion years do, but it could sort of opens up some possibilities. Like I could, I live not too far from where Oprah lives. It's like I could drive by Oprah's house and give her a copy of my book. No, I'm not going to. I think security would probably have a few words to say to me about that. But
just leave it outside the gate.
Just leave it outside the gate. But that makes me think, oh, wait, but are there other people that I could give a copy of my book to that aren't Oprah? Like, oh, like could, yes, could do. So I write down what the thing is, and this is my whole little productivity strategy. So I write down what the thing is, and I try to give it a new name too. Because a lot of times we don't do things because we make them sound like homework, right? Like, clean the house sounds horrible. Make a welcoming environment so I can have people I love over.
Yeah. Call your accountant.
But attend to my wealth dynasty. Like, exactly.
Nurture my piles of gold.
Exactly. So rename it. And then I write down how much time I think it's going to take. And then how much money in or out is involved. And then this last category, and this is where I thought of it, is inclination. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I actually want to do this thing? And I started doing that years ago, and I separated from my first husband. I love all my husbands. But I had spent so many years trying to be a good wifey to him that I had completely lost the voice inside of me that said, I want this.
Okay.
Right. So I was trying to cultivate. So that's where I started doing this. I was like, okay, just if I didn't have to answer to anybody, how much do I actually want to do this? It's really refreshing to just go like, oh, wow, that's like a 9 or a 10. Like, wow, I really want to attend to my wealth dynasty, count my gold coin. That really does matter to me. That's high on the list.
That's interesting. Okay. So the inclination column is, it tells you, are you doing this for you or are you doing it for someone else? Because some of the things on the list are going to be not for you.
Well, and that's important too, to acknowledge like, okay, there's some things that I'm just never going to actually want to do. Right. I have no inclination to prep my taxes. Zero. Great. So again, I'm not going to wait for some magical day when my inner 9-year-old is like, yay, let's do the taxes. Because that day is not coming. So now how do I give myself an incentive to do it without inclination? Oh, I could bribe myself with some new shoes.
Yeah. And the knowledge that you might go to jail if you don't do it or have to pay like massive penalties. That's amazing.
Exactly. Right. I can think about the consequences of not doing it and say, all right, I'm going to make the choice. Other times, honestly, Andrea, I'll make this list and everything on the inclination is like 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. So what do you do on those days?
I realize I'm not lazy. I'm exhausted. So that's time. That means my greatest productivity strategy at that point is to take a nap.
I was going to say, like, do you just go back to bed?
I do. I take a book, I take a novel, and I make a bowl of popcorn, and I go back to bed.
And then you do it later and feel better after the nap?
I'm telling you what. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And sometimes
this is so interesting.
Like, sometimes it takes a whole day or a couple, even two or 3 days. You do not usually more than 2 days. If I'm laying around for more than 2 days, then there's actually probably something else happened, like I'm unwell in some way. And I live with depression and anxiety. And so this question of want and desire, like it's critical for me because it's not, that voice isn't always there.
Right. The motivation. Mm-hmm. I love how you organize that. So is this part of let's talk about your planner, because I love your handy dandy planner. And is this something, tell us about that. And is this something that goes in your planner?
Yeah. So I created the planner because it's these principles that I laid out in Get It Done. And I would teach them in my Get It Done workshop. And then.
So Get It Done is your first or second
It's the first book. It's the flagship.
The first one. Okay.
And I was always like, well, you can just do this on a plain piece of paper. You don't need a worksheet for it. But then people were like, no, we like it when it's laid out. So we made a planner. So every day you get the could-do list where room for, the thing, the time. And the time is so important because how about revise my manuscript? Well, God only knows how much longer that's going to take, right? Revise chapter 1, okay, 2 hours, right. If you cannot put a time to something, then your project is too big. Plan Andrea's birthday party.
Yes.
Plan Andrea's birthday party. That's too much. There's too many things. Call the cake to make sure they've got Andrea's favorite kind of cake. Call the bakery. 15 minutes that I can do. Right. So, and for those of you who chronically underestimate how long things take, this can be a really helpful strategy. Those are like, wow, I constantly think that something's going to take me half an hour and it always takes me 45 minutes. No wonder
and that other things are going to come up inevitably that aren't on your list. I like to put those there just so I can have the satisfaction of crossing.
100%.
I tell clients that all the time about breaking things down. I had a client who recently, she left her 9-to-5 job and started a consulting practice, and she had on her to-do list, make new website.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay. And it kept getting moved over day after day. And she's like, I don't know why I'm procrastinating on that. I'm like, oh my God.
Because your project is big.
Break that puppy down.
Yes.
Smaller bite-sized pieces. I've been doing the same thing. That's why I was kind of snickering and laughing over here, because I've had on my to-do list for a few months about making the workbook for my new book that's coming out. And as I was writing the book, I kept thinking to myself, I should be side by side doing the workbook as I'm going. It's going to make my life so much easier. And I didn't do it. So now I have to go back through each chapter and pull questions out and make this free workbook that we're going to do as a giveaway. And that's exactly what I did this morning, is I put chapter 1, just do chapter 1. That's going to comb through. It's going to take me several hours to do each chapter, but it's so much more doable.
Yeah. Chunk it out. Also, it's good noticing, sometimes when you do have things that wow, I keep putting this on my list and it keeps rolls over every day. Well, this is a really interesting question then. Do you actually want to do this thing? Could somebody else do it? Do you have to be the one to do it? Because somebody else could make that workbook, honey. That's
true. Yeah. You say that. That is true. I do have the time though. Well, and I don't think that you're telling us as amazing as this planner actually is, because this isn't just any planner. And I think my listeners love a good planner. So tell us a little bit more about it. Why does everyone need to get it?
Yeah. So it's designed, because here's the problem, right? You've got your notebooks, I like composition books too, right? You've got your journals, you've got your notebooks, you've got your day planner, you got your Google Calendar, you got all the things going on, and they're all in different places, and it makes you feel like your head's exploding. So this is a planner for your real life, and it's a big planner for people with big lives. So you can have everything all in one place. Because journals and stuff are great for recording, but they're terrible for retrieval. right? We've all got a big stack of notebooks with a zillion great ideas in them, but God only knows where. I mean, I'm not going to go back there and look.
I have notebooks and Post-its.
Right.
Yeah, but they're different colors.
But if it's in the book where everything else is too, and it's tied to a date, you are much more likely to be able to find it again. So, so every day you get the could-do list, and then every day you get a whole big piece of paper to write down your schedule the way you want to do it. Because it makes me crazy in calendars where they're like, okay, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11. I'm like, hey, this morning, 8 to 9 has a lot going on. Like, you know, I need more than one line for 8 to 9. And what about after 11 p.m.? Sometimes I get up at 3 a.m. and write, you know. So there's room to doodle. There's room to, like, I will often put in take out one of my big markers and write lunch in the middle of the day, because it's easy for me to skip lunch. And then at 4, I'm a wreck. So, like, right, that's important to me, right? Tending to my basic animal needs, being a good parent to myself, lunch. And I'll even write down like what I'm going to have or what book I'm going to read while I'm having lunch, and make it sort of a date with myself.
And that's the name of it, the Real Life Planner. And I love that you've thought of things that other planners haven't thought of. And I also am like, you get up at 3 a.m. and write. Like, I'm impressed. Like, and I know you're not doing it to like be an overachiever. It's just how you work sometimes.
It's not that I wake up. It's not that I just try to wake up at 3 a.m. to write. It's sometimes the writing wakes me up at 3 a.m. And I like working at 3 a.m. It's very quiet.
It is very quiet. No one's going to bug you. And that link will be in the show notes to Sam's Real Life Planner.
You all can actually get the free 7-day. You can try it. Get the 7-day downloadable version. And you can just try it for 7 days and see if it vibes, because there's some weekly check-ins too. Because that's another thing, is we don't notice our own progress. And so every week there's ways to check in with yourself about what have you learned and what's different and what is your inner critic saying and what do you actually know to be true and what do you want to try and do next week? And some ways to sort of manage the emotional stuff too. So it's fun. People really seem to love it.
Perfect.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Where's the free 7-day download? Is that easy for people to find online?
Yeah. If you go to therealsambennett.com/real-life-planner. So it's therealsambennett.com/real-life-planner.
And Bennett is with 2 N's and 2 T's.
It is. The second T is silent. No.
Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the the show, Noise, under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something that I love to talk about. And we have discussed it here on the show before, but I definitely think it's worth repeating. And it's another piece of writing that you have where you said, nothing is more important than what?
Nothing is more important than my transformation.
Yeah.
This is a phrase, I think I got this from a coach I was working with. I don't think I invented that particular part of it, but it blew my mind. Nothing is more important than my transformation. So what does that mean? That means my old stories are not more important than my transformation. The fact that my neighbor wants me to do something, that I told my friend I would do a thing that I don't want to do is not more important than my transformation. Other people's expectations of me are not more important than my transformation.
The end goal is not more important.
Yes.
I focus a lot on that. Yeah. The end goal. Yeah. Because this is what we do, right? We say we want things and then we immediately bargain ourselves out of it. So to understand that you are here to be the best version of you can be, to explore the you-ness of you. I have to admit, I get a little impatient with people and they're like, I just don't know what my life purpose is. I'm like, your life purpose is to live your life. Is the journey.
That's it. That's the whole banana.
That's what I tell people too. That's it. There's people get hot and bothered about that question. And it makes sense though. It's like, we're human beings. We want to know that our life matters.
Well, exactly. So find the meaning in the living. So when people work with me, when they sign up for a course, one of the things they get is this commitments poster, and it's actually for sale in the shop. If you go to the Real Sam Bennett shop, you'll see it there. Here it is. This is what I ask of people, right? I can do it. I will do it. With infinite compassion for myself and others, I will not stop until I get the result I want. I will reaffirm my commitment over and over and over again, as many times as it takes. Nothing is more important to me than my transformation. I agree to graciously accept success, love, health, prosperity, and overall well-being for the greater good of all concerned.
Mic drop. I could listen to Sam read poetry all day, every day. So could you be on standby for
Absolutely,
that?
I'm available anytime. I'll keep my book
available for parties and bar mitzvahs.
That's right.
I love that. I love a good motivational poster. Did you know I got made fun of? And in my 20s, I had this job at a department store where I dressed mannequins and windows for a living. And yes, it was as fun as it sounds.
Awesome.
But there was one of those posters. What were they called? I think they were popular in the 90s, where it was like a picture of a jet or something. And then it said determination at the bottom.
Accessories.
Yes, accessories. There was stores in the mall,
right? With like eagles and lions and things.
Oh yeah. I loved them. And I mean, I think that was, the universe screaming at me of what was in my future profession. But my coworkers made fun of me. Like, those are so cheesy. Like, you guys just don't understand.
And it seems to me that there was actually a satirical version that was like, reach for the middle.
Yes. About lowering expectations. Yes, accessories. I haven't heard that word in such a long time.
I haven't thought of that word in years. Accessory.
I still see them every once in a while in like an old TV show rerun, like in the background. I think there might be one floating around in an old rerun of The Office somewhere.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But I love those. Okay. I got one more question for you. One more topic I want to talk about. And that is about another piece of writing you did. The one thing that determines the quality of your life.
Yeah. The one thing. Okay. So answer this for yourselves, listeners. Let me invite you into this conversation. What do you think it is? Because I'm here to tell you, it's your relationships. Mm-hmm. It's your relationship with yourself, but it's your relationship with other people. We are tribal animals. We are designed and built and specifically made to live in a group.
Yeah. To be social.
To be social. We cannot live alone. We know this. We will die if we are alone. So we're very interested in other people. And whenever I hear people say like, "Oh, I'm such a people pleaser," I'm like, well, yes, you're supposed to be. That's
right.
Good. It's not good if you do it
chronically
to the degree that you're compromising yourself, but you should want to please other people, at least. And you can please them by being sarcastic and mean. I mean,
if those are your people,
those are your people, right? David Letterman's had 3 or 4 careers being sarcastic. Like, we love that. So it's not like you have to be all nicey schmicey all the time, but the quality of your relationships and really that old successory about don't stay where you're tolerated, go where you're celebrated.
Oh, I don't know if I've heard that one. Don't go where you're tolerated, go where you're celebrated. Yeah. In other words, find new friends if your friends are shitty.
Find new friends if your friends are shitty. Find new bosses if your bosses are shitty. Like, find where you feel loved and appreciated and noticed and cared for, and where you are hanging out with people that you love and respect and think are cool. You know, I am so consistently flattered by the existence of my friends. I'm like, really? You like me? That's amazing. You know, and you want people who are going to inspire you and cause you to think new thoughts and grow in new ways and appreciate the things that you may not even notice about yourself.
I want that for everyone. I truly do. Every person listening to this show, I want that for everyone. And I want to throw out a quick piece of advice here that might seem a little kooky, but I think it works. And it's definitely going to be out of some people's comfort zone. So my friend, she moved to a new state and she wanted to make friends. And she'd had enough experience. It was the first time she'd ever left her home state, but she had heard from enough of her other friends, like how it can be difficult to make friends as an adult. And so she put out basically like a want ad. I think she put it on like the Nextdoor app. And she posted it on Facebook and it was kind of like a personal ad. Like, she's child-free by choice. So she preferred friends that also were. She told them her political views, just giving you a heads up. Here's what I believe. And she kind of bragged about herself a little bit. You know, I like personal development. I'm very self-aware. I love deep conversations and vulnerability. And she was super transparent about it. And she got some response and she made a couple of friends.
That's so great.
I know. And I'm like, that is such a great, and it's kind of a no-brainer. It's like, of course you would. But I understand that's way out of people's comfort zones, but I'm like, why not?
No,
people that judge you and think you're kooky are in many ways just themselves jealous. I'm going to say that they can't be that brave themselves.
Totally. And, my friend Shasta Nelson, and if you haven't had Shasta on the show,
I've had her on like 3 times. She's a miracle.
Yes, miracle. And her work on friendship is absolutely game changing. And it's, and the minute she starts talking, you're like, this is shocking that we don't talk more about friendship.
Exactly.
Like, how has this been so neglected for so long? And I also want to say, I think sometimes, you hear that thing about, oh, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I forget the management guy who came up with that.
It's Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I also think it's shitty and just totally cloaked in privilege. Let's just say that out loud. Like, it's great for people who have access to rooms where they can be around these amazing people. It's not for everyone.
Right. And I also think that sometimes we hear that and we think like, well, so what? I'm supposed to dump my old friends?
Right.
And what I have found in my own life is that as I grow and transform, I don't hardly ever have to dump anybody. People naturally phase out. And this is actually something I learned from Shasta. We replace like 50% of our friends every 7 years. That's just a natural evolution, right? In the same way, like, you get new shoes. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. And like, you shed skin cells. I didn't know there was an actual like research and stat on it. Of course, Shasta would know. And I know now that I do like a quick inventory, that is true. And sometimes friends come in and out of your life.
Right. Exactly. They'll go away for a while and then they'll come back, which is delightful. And I had it a couple of years ago. I had a person I'd been friends with since college. And it had always been a difficult friendship. She was always a kind of a difficult person to love sometimes. And then there was a sort of an incident, and I was like, I think we're done. And I had to break up with her. And it was terrible. It was as bad as any of my divorces. And I still love her very much, but I was like, well, I think what actually happened is I changed what I needed out of the relationship, that for many years, me just being really helpful to her was sufficient. That was satisfying to me. And eventually,
until it wasn't.
And eventually I was like, wait a minute, I'm not getting anything out of this except for the satisfaction of, I'll help, my little Girl Scoutness. And, and I had to break up with her, and it was heartbreaking. But the minute I did it, I started to notice the other friends in my life and how they were stepping up and showing up for me in ways that I never in a million years could have anticipated.
Interesting.
And I don't know if they were doing that all along and I just wasn't noticing it, and that starting to think about, what does friendship actually mean to me and what do I actually want and need from a friendship? Or if getting rid of that relationship made a little more space for people to show up. But relationships, they matter.
It's a hard pill to swallow, and to even take inventory of your friendships. Cause like once you do that, then you feel like the need to take action on it. And it's one of those, like, you can't unsee it once you see it. And I just want to acknowledge how complicated that can be for people. And we'll post the links in the show notes for those episodes that I had Shasta on talking about friendships. She talks about friendships in personal life and at work is her newest episode that she was on. So,
and sometimes we have relationships, particularly at work or also with our families, that we're not completely in control of, right? And for those, I just want to say, you all have my express permission to keep your head down and your shields up. And just don't talk to them about you. Talk to them about them. Ask them questions about themselves. People love that. And just have somewhere else where you go to get nourished and fed.
I love that advice. And let's end on that. Samantha Bennett, thank you so much. And the website, everybody, it will be in the show notes. It's therealsambennett.com. You can grab the link to download the free 7-day real life planner, and then also the link to the actual planner that you can hold in your hands. Anything else that you want to say before we close it up to feel complete?
I'm so grateful for your friendship, and I'm so grateful for your voice in the world, that you're out there making some noise and really helping. I think the relationship we have, not just with the people we actually know, but the people we invite into our minds, like the podcasts we listen to. There's thousands and thousands of people out there who are having a relationship with you, Andrea, and you are inspiring them and helping them have a better life. And I think that's beautiful.
Thank you for that. I'm going to take that compliment. And I'm inspired by my listeners, that they take the time out of their day to listen to this show and listen to my guests. That's why I'm very picky about who I bring on the show. I only want the best of the best to be able to help them better their lives. And I thank my listeners at the end of every show, and I may forget here and there, but I thank them for their time, because it's a finite resource and it's so important. I don't take that for granted. I'm incredibly grateful to my guests for that. And so that being said, remember everyone, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans, and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye, everyone.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.